holy crap, a lot happened in 2024. Today, we are going to go through 10 of the most significant political events from 2024 and judge how impactful they will be moving forward. January 10th was the date of the last Republican primary debate. If you remember, we had that huge field of candidates, and we ended up with Donald Trump as the winning candidate for the Republican primary. I bring this up because if you remember, it was a big issue that Donald Trump did not participate in the Republican primary debates, but still went on to win the Republican primaries very handily. My concern here lies with, will this cause frontrunners in the future in primaries to not participate in debates? I think that would be an overall bad thing if the frontrunner for each party does not participate in the primary debates. Will they be able to get away with it, and will voters punish them for doing that? We can't know. We'll only be able to see when 2024 comes around. It seems unlikely. It seems like Donald Trump was in a fairly unique position here, but we will have to wait and see. It feels like it was a lifetime ago, but February this year was when Tucker Carlson interviewed Vladimir Putin. This was the first time Putin had given a Western interview since the invasion of Ukraine. If you remember, this was really weird because Putin spent a big chunk of the time justifying his invasion with like that weird long historical analysis of land claims in the Soviet Union and empires and stuff. I remember thinking this would be a huge deal at the time, but it seems like this interview had a minimal lasting impact overall. It did lead to Tucker Carlson becoming weirdly pro-Russia.
It's perfectly clean and orderly. And how do you explain that? We're not even going to guess. That's not our job. We're only going to ask the question. And if your response is to shout at us slogans dumber than the slogans we used to call Soviet and mock, that's not really an answer.
Trump was found guilty of more than 30 felonies. If you remember, this had to do with the hush money that Donald Trump paid to naughty actress Stormy Daniels and falsifying business records up in New York. Donald Trump being a felon has proven to be politically irrelevant. I don't think very many people cared about it when they went and voted, and only the most unserious of Democrats would still bring it up as a major political issue. What are the future impacts? It's hard to say. I don't see it being likely that a lot of just like criminals and felons will be running for office in the future, but it does open up that possibility. It won't be as weird moving forward. This, of course, was unrelated to the case in Georgia where Trump was arrested and got a mugshot, which only helped him in the polls. This debate was crazy. Joe Biden looked lost, confused, and ancient when he debated Donald Trump.
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
This was probably the most notable debate performance since at least 2012, when Rick Perry forgot one of the 3 cabinet departments he would abolish.
It's 3 agencies of government when I get there that are gone. Commerce, education, and the, what's the third one there? Let's see.
Many on the left and in the middle, myself included, didn't think Biden's mental decline was that bad, and this debate proved that it was far worse than we had thought. The debate performance was clearly a factor in Joe Biden dropping out of the election later on, and I don't think there will be a huge impact moving forward, but it will appear in future worst debate performances of all time compilations on YouTube. The UK held an election on the 4th of July while we were busy lighting off fireworks and pouring tea into the harbor. This election was notable because the Conservative Party lost power for the first time since 2010. If you remember, they have obviously prime ministers and not presidents, and they had David Cameron. He was prime minister from 2010 until he left after the Brexit vote in 2016. We had Theresa May. She was Mrs. Brexit means Brexit. She resigned in 2019. We had 3 years of old Boris Johnson, and then we had that lady who was prime minister for like a month when the Queen died, and then we had Rishi Sunak for a few years. That was 14 years all Conservative prime ministers, until this year when the United Kingdom elected this guy from the Labour Party, Keir Starmer. Starmer is very unpopular so far, largely due to economic stagnation and bureaucratic issues and stuff going on over in the United Kingdom. This has been a minor thing in America. We haven't really talked about it much. However, working with a left-wing government moving forward could pose issues for Donald Trump in European policy. Donald Trump was shot in the ear at a campaign stop in Pennsylvania by this guy, Thomas Matthew Crooks. This was certainly the most notable political assassination attempt in my lifetime. Donald Trump narrowly avoided becoming one of the 3 significant presidents assassinated, and instead became the 3rd significant presidential attempted assassination. This image by Evan Vucci became notable, and it boosted Donald Trump's support. He shouted, "Fight, fight, fight," when he was on the ground after being shot. The assassination attempt was condemned by all major figures on both sides, and it seems unlikely to lead to future political assassinations. At least that's what we can hope for. In an unprecedented move, Joe Biden stepped down right before the Democratic National Convention this summer and endorsed Kamala Harris, avoiding a truly open convention. This was the first time recently that we had somebody get the primary votes and then not be their party's nominee, and I think the disaster of the 2024 election for the Democrats shows that this will not be an option either party will use moving forward. Donald Trump won a landslide election over Kamala Harris in the 2024 presidential election. He won 312 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 226, which was the best performance by a Republican presidential candidate in decades. There are 3 broad takeaways that I think we can get out of this election. Looking backwards, we can look at the old Clinton campaign slogan of "It's the economy, stupid," and clearly this remains true today. Clearly the economy and Americans' dissatisfaction with the economy was a factor in this election. The second takeaway I would get would be today the Republican Party has changed their base. The Republican Party clearly has a more working class base, at least more so than they did before. I hesitate to call them the party of the working class, but they clearly have a stronger base with the working class than they did before. And 3, looking forward, I think clearly the internet and especially podcasts will be supremely important to next presidential election and in future presidential election cycles. I think we can look forward and see that the candidates in 2024 will be trying to get on podcasts like Joe Rogan. Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, was assassinated. Luigi Mangione has been charged with murder. It seems like he had some issues with the healthcare system. I hesitate to say any more until more facts come out and the trial occurs. Looking at lasting impact, though, I think the biggest thing is the concerning amount of online support there was for the murder of Brian Thompson on platforms like Reddit and X. A lot of people came out in support for this assassination due to their issues with the healthcare system, and I think this was concerning for a lot of people who fall in the political middle. Hopefully, this event will not lead to a future of assassination attempts on notable figures. Obviously, with this being so recent, we will have to wait and see. After over a decade of civil war, dictator Bashar al-Assad's regime collapsed and he fled the country. This was notable for giving Biden a much-needed victory on the foreign policy front after failures in Afghanistan and Ukraine and Israel. He didn't have a lot going for him in foreign policy, so this will help his legacy moving forward. Additionally, I think we will look at what happened to Bashar al-Assad and contrast it with the brutal collapse of Saddam Hussein's regime in Iraq, and if you remember, he was executed by his own people, and Muammar Gaddafi and the collapse of his regime in Libya, and he was murdered in the streets by his own people. So what big events did I miss from 2024? What do you agree or disagree with about the impacts of these events moving forward? And what will 2025 hold politically for America? We will have to stay tuned to find out. Thanks for watching, and please consider liking and subscribing.